Called the meeting to order, but I don't think we have any adjustments to the agenda.
We do have one.
We do.
Sorry. You're going to remove your action matter of 7.4, the contract for playground site work.
Okay. Which makes me want to add a very short discussion matter as 6.4. So we didn't talk about the waiver.
Yep.
So 6.4 will be a discussion of the waiver required for the Land and Water Conservation Fund Act. So, and I think for the first time in a year, no one's here from the audience.
Amazing.
That's great. It must be beautiful spring weather. And so we will turn it over to Hannah and Rachel as for a presentation on English language learners.
Yeah, we are really excited to be here. I'm Hannah. This is Rachel. And I actually work 1 day a week for about an hour at Charlotte, but I'm mostly in Shelburne, and Rachel's full-time in Shelburne. So we're really excited about this presentation just to raise awareness and understanding about our ELL program and this like exploding, population of students in our schools. So.
Okay, and there are 6 ELL teachers in the SU, and as Hannah said, 2 of us exist in Shelburne, and we, the Director of Curriculum and Instruction and Assessment oversees our program.
And so we took if you want to just, sorry, Patty, it's kind of finicky. We took a really small clip of a couple ELL students that we wanted to show you guys so you could hear some of their language and just survey the diversity that we have at Shelburne, because we're a unique school. Vermont in general is a unique place because we don't have a high population of Hispanic speakers from Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and Mexico. We have a lot of diversity from around the world, so we have a really cool population at Shelburne. So here's a really short video of a couple kids. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Gary, and I'm from. Hi, my name is Faisal, and I'm from Saudi Arabia. Hi, I'm from Somalia.
My name is Donna.
Hi, my name is Jessica Key.
Hi, my name is Khalid here.
Hi, my name is Leila. My family's from Bosnia. My mom works from. All my family works from Brazil.
I'm from Somalia.
I speak Bosnian and I like yellow because I get to practice reading. I speak 2 things.
My parents are from China, Fuzhou, China, and I speak Chinese.
I speak English and Somali.
I speak English at school, but at home I speak Bosnian.
I had to put that in there, I'm sorry.
The first thing is hard, just like spelling the words and like saying, getting the pronouns right, and like I don't know, maybe like feel like the hardest thing is like saying it, like every time it slips when I say a word, like when I want it, I can't.
A thing that's hard for me in English language is the English
So it's a variety. He's a 7th grader. Jessica was a 7th grader. The other.
I like coming to ELL is because if I don't understand something, I know that the ELL teachers can help me.
Anyway, so that's not all of our students, but it's a small like snippet, like look into, some of the population that we have at Shelburne. So. I think if you go down to the bottom, yeah. So we wanted to really quickly just show a graph, which I think is pretty incredible, at our numbers throughout the CSSU from 2002 to 2015 and our numbers at Shelburne. So we started with about 7 in 2002 ELL students, and we've expanded to 137 this year. And in Shelburne alone, we've had exponential growth from, I think we started at 4, and right now we're serving 37 students, or 35 students, I believe. So as you can see, what we call, a lot of the people that we serve, the students that we serve, are what we call immigrants, I-N, because what they do is they're settling in Burlington and Winooski when they come as immigrants and refugees or adoptions, and then they kind of sort of migrate out into the exterior cities like Shelburne, Charlotte, Heinsberg, Williston, Essex, and they settle in these places. So what we've seen is a large portion of people moving outside of Winooski and Burlington into our district. And the trend is definitely continuing in the next year to come, too.
And our students are from, as we said earlier, from around the world, from Somalia to China to Brazil, many different countries, and many different languages spoken in their homes.
And so just an idea of the students that we have at Shelburne, 35 students. We have newcomers, so kids who've only been in the school or in the United States for less than a year. So they have pretty limited English. We have refugees, we have immigrants, we have students that have actual limited or interrupted schooling, so didn't have any formal education in their prior wherever country that they came from. And then we also have a small population of students that are international adoption kids, who a lot of them are, some of them don't speak their native language, but they have some language interference that's residual from knowing their first language first and then dropping it and picking up English. So.
You speaking on that one?
Well, I think it is.
Oh, is that okay? So identifying the ELL students always starts with the home language survey that all families entering the school system get, and it just allows us to see what languages might be spoken at home, and if there's anything other than English listed on the survey, then Hannah or I will interview the family or the student to decide if maybe there's a possibility that they might have a need for some ELL support. Kids are also tested on a yearly basis, so we can watch their development in the English language. That's the WIDA testing that they have.
I think one of the things that there's a very standard process for this. This is a federally mandated program, and we get a lot of our funding from federal dollars. So a lot of times we'll get people that have different names, and they're like, oh, maybe they're an ELL student, but we have a very specific process that we have to go through to ascertain whether or not they are an ELL student. So it's not just, we noticed they spoke a little Spanish, because they have to meet the criteria for us to pick them up as ELL students. So one of the big things that we talk about as ELL teachers is BICS and CALP. And BICS is a student's basic interpersonal communicative skills. Can they ask, can I go to the bathroom? Can they engage in social interactions with their family or friends? It's really that social language. And that usually takes, it says up there, 6 months to 2 years to develop. And that it depends on the kid, of course. And then there's what we have. We also have CALP, which is Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. And this is the academic language where they're using in Socratic situations in the classroom, academic vocabulary that is content specific or discipline specific. And it takes 5 to 10 years to really develop. So a lot of times a student, an EL student, can show that they have a BICS, their basic interpersonal skills, but they're really lacking in their CALP. So it can be kind of a weird situation when you notice that this kid is doing a really nice job of, engaging socially with friends, but when it comes to that cognitive academic language, there's a disconnect. So we really target the CALP in a lot of our ELL students, because BICS is something that's going to develop pretty naturally, especially within the building. Shelburne Community School is really great about that. But so we really, BICS does not always translate into that cognitive language. So we really target academic language and making sure that they can engage in academic conversations and other situations.
And for these students, their families, and their families, they're learning another language, they're learning English, and they're also having to adapt to our culture. So there's a lot going on for the families, and part of our role is to help them through that. So we're available to assist families when needed.
So there's a lot of things that we do as ELL teachers. We identify them, we provide direct English instruction, in-class, out-of-class support. We do a lot of collaboration and co-teaching with other teachers. We give assessments, we determine accommodations for things like the SBAC, and then we administer those tests. Probably one of our biggest roles, especially this year, has been facilitating the home-school connection. Like Rachel said, a lot of these families are coming in, they are learning to a culture. They come into the Shelburne community, they need help with filling out forms. And you think that it wouldn't fall under our domain, but it all does. So we we help with making sure that they understand all their forms, making sure that they have, simple things like understanding the summer school programs, or trying to think of other examples.
Well, we often have to get translators to come in, and we have to get forms sometimes translated so that parents can access them.
Yeah, so there's
Policies and procedures.
right. There's this whole other level of our role that kind of transcends the classroom and the English language instruction, which is, I drove a family to the hospital to deliver a baby because they couldn't understand how to get an ambulance, and it's just, there's a lot of extra things that we do to help these families navigate our social and community around in Shelburne. So keeps you on your toes. And so we're actually piloting a summer camp this summer, which is really exciting. It's called Shelburne, Vermont, an adventure in Shelburne history, life, and industry. And what we've noticed in the past year is a lot of these students you heard in the video, what they're doing is they're speaking English at school, but they go home and they speak their home language with their family, with their friends. And some of them may speak more than one language. We have some students that speak French and then some other African dialects. So it can be kind of a confusing world to navigate for them. And so we've noticed that a lot of kids are going home over the summer and they're coming back with like intense regression, reading level, ability to write, even mathematics. So we've decided this summer to really target those students and to provide a community connection where they can go out in Shelburne, they'll be reading and writing, and there'll be a lot of focus on literacy and academic vocabulary so that they can not only get to know the community, but hopefully prevent some of that regression in their reading levels and other aspects of their academia. And I think that is it. Any other questions we'd love to answer?
Are these services funded entirely by the education fund, or are there social services funds for this? Or,
we have federal funding, and then we also have Vermont grant title. I'm not exactly sure.
Yep. One of the grants that Molly manages is what ELL falls under. So that funds some and professional development, but the bulk of it is local education funding.
You might recall we did a decision packet this last budget season in order to support that ELL summer school that Hannah just talked about.
Is there any integration with the activities that are provided by the town, the recreation department, or anything like that? Is there an opportunity to involve some of these ELL students in the town activities as well?
Yeah, I have just helped a student who wants to participate in one of the summer rec programs, and
Great.
So he's filled out the form. We're going to actually drop it off this week, and so we assist. There's nothing just for that group of kids, but I think with our help we can get them involved.
Yeah, we try to make them aware of like other programs happening across the district and in the community so that they have access to that, and then we provide any additional like form filling out, and sometimes we look for scholarships for kids when they don't have the money to do it. So.
Do you feel you're supported well enough to do a good job with these students?
I think one of the big things about Shelburne is that they've had exploding numbers, and I don't think that at the beginning, I think like Rachel was, she was the only teacher there and had a lot of students last year.
Students were moving in.
Yeah.
You know,
but
several families.
Yeah.
At a time, and so.
And I think that through these presentations and a lot of like co-teaching classes and raising more awareness, we did a faculty meeting presentation, and we do a lot of push-in and we do a lot of collaboration with other teachers. I mean, there could always be more help for sure, but I think that this year we're doing definitely a really great job of making sure that we're supporting around each child. For sure. I think that we could probably have a little bit more help, obviously, but it's through going to all the meetings and making sure that you're checking in with teachers on the fly, and sometimes we do after school or before school if it need be, but it takes constant collaboration to make sure that we're supporting all of these students for sure.
Well, I think you're doing a great job. I had the privilege of mentoring a young student last year who came from Bosnia to Shelburne Community School and started school within several days, I guess, just at the beginning of September, and worked with her. And by the end of the school year, she was just flying with her language ability and so confident, and it was just really clear that she had been supported throughout the school to get her to where she needed to academically and socially. So that was terrific to see that with her. Amazing, to my mind, that she could make those leaps and bounds in her progression.
And she is an amazing kid.
She
who
is.
Just, you have to give her a lot of credit.
Right. Yeah, she flourished, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Are these kids able to come in and learn enough of the language so that their, for lack of a better word, their chronological age matches what their academic age
For the
is?
most
Are they
part.
pretty close?
And I guess we should clarify too, this year we have about 4 limited English proficiency students, I would say. For the most part, we have a lot of students who have the social language when they're coming in. It's the academic language that they need help with. But we haven't had too many. We definitely have students with interrupted former education.
Yeah.
But we do the best we can to support them. And some of them may be on IEPs for any cognitive deficits. But usually it takes a whole team of people to gather around a student to give them support. So
When Kathy asked her question about support, I thought she meant monetary support and not just support around the school.
Well, that was all encompassing.
Yeah.
It meant that
I mean, are you
getting at what the school board can and need to do to help this.
Yeah, is there, are you challenged in your budgets more than anyone else, or do you have enough assets and resources to complete your job? I mean, do you really feel you could do more with more, or?
I think we have some good money from the grant money
Okay.
that Molly has been able to acquire, so that's been really helpful. I think if that wasn't available, then it would be difficult to get some of the material we might need.
And with a lot of ELL students, they need time to practice and so it's not necessarily resources. I mean, it is people for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that Shelburne does a really nice job of really rallying around a student. And so I don't know if we really need more money. I mean, I don't know if I should say that, but I think that what we need is more awareness about the population and understanding about their program and what it takes to elevate their proficiency in English. And they're chasing like a moving target. They're learning English and then they're also learning content. So it's a double wham. But we always need more people, but there's a lot of people that step up. And I don't know if resources would necessarily, I guess I'm thinking of things and materials.
Well, I just, I feel like a lot of times we get things a year later, like, oops, we didn't budget right for subs and we need $25,000.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to get a feel for, and you guys seem like you're in a good spot and everything's, working well, and that's great, because, there's some presentations that come in here and, people are like, we need more, we need this, but you know, this is a great
So-
story, and this is, you know, 37 kids in a school of 770 that had 4 10 years ago.
And
You know,
It
that's
is growing.
huge.
And
Yeah.
we forgot
And
to
more
mention too, right now, kindergartners signed up, and that doesn't account for like this year we had like 4 or 5 kids move in. And we did have a couple move out, but kindergartners signed up with some form of language. You know, they filled out a home language survey as 12.
Wow.
So that's.
And it's 82 out of 82.
Right.
And I think it's also kind of acknowledging that over the past 2 years at least, the CSSU board has seen decision packets sometimes mid-year to increase FTE, because 2 years ago there wouldn't have been 2 people standing here. So I think that is, I think we would want the board to continue to recognize the importance of doing that in response to.
Yeah. I actually started as part-time
Right.
January last year, and I got here and I was like, I couldn't believe like the number of students and what Rachel was already doing to support them and how much help she really needed. And by the end of the year, I was full-time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it happens pretty quickly.
Well, and even when I started, I was part-time in Heinsberg and part-time in Shelburne and even .1 in Charlotte, and then I was kind of back out of that. And so, yeah.
And
it's
point
just-
one driving between the 3.
See, that's actually one of the
3
things that
hours.
I'm .1 at Charlotte right now, and I was a little bit more there, but we lost a student. But it's been really, that's been one of the challenges is I'm not building based. So going back and forth in between Charlotte and Shelburne can really impact how much services a student gets throughout the day.
Yeah.
So.
Is it possible to consider volunteer programs if you're talking about time with students? Perhaps consider a group of volunteers being able to come in, read with the students, or do social activities or whatever, because I think we have a good community of people that would be interested in volunteering. I mean, you look at our CY program and see how that has just increased this year. So
There's actually I'm not sure if I think she's a 4th grader who I met with, who's doing a little project on ways to help new American students. And
wonderful.
she just presented yesterday and has done a great job. So those are some of the things she's, hoping to do.
Good.
To
Wonderful.
Get people to volunteer to help.
Go ahead, Bob.
Looking at the other side of the equation, I think it's a phenomenal experience for the English language students, the mainstream, the 95% of the students for whom English is not a problem. I've got to believe that these ELL students enrich the educational experience of the others.
Absolutely.
Is there any data to support that, or because just intuitively it would appear that way to me? I'd love to know if there's a positive effect.
Right. I mean, I think
Measurable.
most certainly that we've probably got a lot of anecdotal.
Yeah, I would
information
say
to
that
suggest,
a lot of our services are push-in services, so we go right into the classroom, and these kids have such different perspectives and world views that they add so much to every academic conversation. And it could be as simple as having a totally different background knowledge on a subject or being an expert in it. I mean, it's remarkable what they bring to the classrooms. And even to see other students kind of like, sometimes pronunciation and speaking can be very a point of a lot of nervousness and stress for ELL students, and seeing other students rally around them to encourage them to speak up in class is really something that's been really positive this year and exciting to see happening at Shelburne. So.
How do you guys function if obviously you don't know Vietnamese, Swiss German, Somali, and so how does, I know you said you brought in translators and things like that, but do you do exercises and activities that don't involve you having to know the native language?
Exactly. We're teaching them English, so we never really need their language. The translators are mainly for meetings that parents might have with teachers.
Okay.
To communicate at parent conferences or that sort of thing.
Yeah, we do a lot of visuals and realia and body movements for
Okay.
them to do. There's a lot of mimicking and repetition that they need. We have kids across the spectrum. So with some kids, we're doing a lot of academic vocabulary and literacy skills, and for some kids, it's just basic vocabulary. But it's a lot of visuals, a lot of hands-on, a lot of realia. I mean, that's really what we rely on.
And both of them are members of we have graded teams for each of our grades, and so both of them are part of that. So when they talk about being part of those communities, they're really part of, the 5th grade group, for example. They have students in that grade, but they also are just part of those teams that those children are on. So they're really seen as just kind of teachers, like the other teachers. And we've made a lot of connections to what we do in special education. So with students who, have are struggling students in just academics, period. There's just so many connections that we make with that. So the teams of an ELL teacher, a special ed teacher, and a regular classroom teacher are probably some of the richest teams we have in our school.
We've also had a couple of kids coming in with high incidence of trauma from either
War.
I mean, all across the spectrum, even just simple things even if they were born here in Burlington. And so we have a lot of trauma, so we work as a school to really facilitate those care systems to make sure that they're getting every need met. And like Patty said, we do have a high population of IEP ELL students, so students that have a language additive but also a cognitive deficit. So it makes their cases extremely complicated for sure. And so it's hard sometimes to get down to the root of the issue. Is it a language issue? Is it an actual something that they are processing slower? Or so there's a lot of teamwork that goes into every student for sure.
Great. Nice.
And we have our own ELL room, which has been great this year. And it's been something that's been wonderful, and it's great for the kids to feel like, they can go to the ELL room and just kind of check in with us.
Is that the room that was the former mentoring room?
I think so, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. We've moved so much, Kathy.
I know.
The last 2 years. I have to really think about that.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Okay. Great. Any other questions? No?
No?
Thank
Good.
you
So much.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Wonderful.
much for being here. Really appreciate
Yeah.
it. That was a great presentation.
Wonderful.
All right, so we'll move on to the principal's report.
All right. So you already have this in electronic form, but the only reason I'm going to ship you another copy is because I did forget the link to, I don't know if you recall, but last month was the first time that I had put in a link for Shannon Baird's PTO presentation that she does. Do you remember I did that last time? And so I had forgotten on your original one that you got. So that link is in there that you could connect to if you wish. So slam poetry, Carly Bennett did a wonderful job bringing her team for our middle school students to a slam poetry event, and then had her own event at school. Her judges were a number of teachers that she asked to come in and judge. I was one of them. It was unbelievable fun. So kids just love listening to slam poetry. We had a team that went to Destination Imagination. That's an offshoot of Odyssey in the Mind. You probably have heard of that program, so it's a similar type of program. And there's two of our community members, Carolyn Sakama and Dan Erickson. They were the two team leaders, coaches, and they had won at the state level, so they got to go to Tennessee, and they had to do a fundraiser because obviously it cost a lot of money to go to Tennessee.
Yeah.
And they raised $10,000 to be able to go on that trip.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, Bob, but they did a bunch of they had a garage sale and some other things. But one of the things they did was on Friday night they rented out the field house, and you could drop your kids off $20 for the first kid, $10 for every kid after that. And,
Great idea.
And we auctioned them off.
and that, everywhere I went in town that evening were two parents sitting calmly talking to each other.
That's great.
And then we all re-met back at the field house 2 hours later.
That's terrific.
Isn't that awesome?
That is
They raised a
amazing.
ton.
brilliant
I don't remember what they
idea.
raised specifically on that night, but it was
That was a lot.
It
I
was
mean,
a
they
big
raised a ton
part of that. It
money.
was
Based on how
thousands.
many kids I saw around there, they must
Yeah.
have raised a lot of money.
A lot of
'cause they're-
money.
That's a
Well,
brilliant
the merchants
idea.
must have been delighted too.
Exactly.
Bar Peters and
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
All those parents.
Cucine Antique.
Exactly.
So I did also want to just hand out one thing to you, and it's just a rough draft really, but I wanted to make sure that you have some of the details of our evacuation that we're going to have tomorrow.
Yes.
You may have heard about
Did
this.
hear about that.
Many members of our community
My granddaughter told us we
talked
could
about
come
it.
and pick them up at 1:30 tomorrow
That's right.
because there wasn't going to be any school after that.
Well, she's theoretically correct.
Oh, really?
but- well, because she'll be doing a drill. So,
Right.
But we'd like her to participate in the drill because
Yes.
the whole point is for children to know what to do in the event of
Exactly.
a true emergency. So, just in general, at 1:45 tomorrow, we're going to start the drill. We thank the police department and fire department of Shelburne for participating in the drill. We'll go out as though it's a fire drill. We'll all kind of convene. We'll take attendance. This is the entire school, remember. And then we will walk students to the field house. Once in the field house, we'll sort children into those who are going home on buses and those who are going back to the school. And kids will go back to the school by school time, basically. So, we dismiss at 2:50, so somewhere right around the 2:50 mark. And then all other students who walk home or bike home or have after-school activities or whatnot will be dismissed at that time by their classroom or homeroom teachers. So I just wanted to put in a plug for that. We have sent things out via Connect 5, so parents, guardians should be pretty familiar with what's happening. We asked them to complete the portion at the bottom of this form, as you can see. This is the first Connect 5 information that they got, asking in a true emergency, where would your child need to go on that day? So we've done this drill successfully 2 years ago, a little bit earlier than this in the year, I believe, where we did take all kiddos off site, or all people off site, and that was very successful, as I said. So this is one more layer on top of that, where we now are asking the buses to come pick them up. So it's like more like a real emergency, where you wouldn't be able to go back into a school if there was some situation happening back at the school. So we'll let you know how it goes at our next school board meeting. Anyone have questions on
The
that?
only thing, when we were filling this out, is
Uh-huh.
the only thing that's missing is to be picked up by a parent
Right.
or the caregiver. Because it wasn't clear, like, I have a regular babysitter that picks my kid up.
Gotcha.
But I didn't want to put the other plan into effect and make you have to read the comments.
Plus,
Thank you, I will add that to it.
there is a variety according to the day of the week as to what happens.
Right.
Some day of the weeks
Right.
it's bus, some day of the weeks it's
Right.
pickup.
Right.
So,
So that's
Okay.
interesting. I don't want to take too long, but it was
Right.
interesting talking to some people who have been in areas where they've been through these things,
Yeah.
and they are actually asked, like people who live in Colorado, for example, it's not uncommon for them to be asked on any day, if there was an emergency,
yeah,
where would this child go?
right.
Regardless of what your after-school plans, what if it was in the middle of the day, where would the child
Mhm.
go? You know, that
Mhm.
kind of thing, so.
Yeah, that's
So
a
if
good
you think
thought,
about
too.
it that way, it truly is, I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully we never use this. I mean, that's obviously the hope, so,
But in reality, like, if this happened before the buses go, there's going to have to be an alert now that goes out and says,
Oh, yeah.
due to an emergency at the school,
absolutely.
child will be coming home. So
Right, so-
hopefully you get this message and can meet them. 'Cause-
Or,
Yeah.
your child would be at the field house safe with,
Okay.
supervision
Until-
such time
okay.
as someone could come pick up your child.
That was
Right,
my
that would be
other
the
question.
Yeah, I think the bus part was more, what if in the event of an emergency you had to not be in that area? So
Yeah.
the field house is our location,
Yep.
but there could be a potential that you'd have to move kiddos off site from the field house.
And
Does
I
that make
already
sense?
asked for you, Bob. The field house is not charging them.
No,
It's free of charge.
free of charge. They actually like it. They've liked us being there, so
I
they're
don't understand
incredible.
why they like that.
I don't know, but they're incredible hosts, so we really appreciate what they do. So thank you for reminding me to put in a plug for them as well. I appreciate it. So anyway, moving right along, we'll see how it goes. We'll let you know. Any feedback that you have, though, please do let us know, because we want to poke holes in this so that we can make it better in the future. So that would be great. Trouts in the Classroom is a program that Jessica West, one of our third grade teachers, instituted this year with the help of her husband, who is a member of Trouts Unlimited. And what they basically did was Trouts Unlimited gave us all the supplies and materials, and they raised trouts from little trouts. Is that right? Trout? I don't know how you pronounce
It's fried.
Fry, is that what it is? Little fry.
That's what we learned in the last
That's
meeting.
Oh, that's right. It's
Serious?
fried.
Fry?
Yeah.
Fry.
Well, from eggs to
fry,
fry
of
is what
course.
it's called. Right. Thanks,
Yes.
Dave. That's right. And so she raised these fry. She and the group raised the fry, and then they took them out and put them in where did we go? Lewis Creek. Over at Lewis Creek. And it was a beautiful day a couple of weeks ago, and the kids sent these trout off into the water, and they wrote poems, and they sang songs. They did a rap.
Very emotional.
Oh, it was incredibly emotional. It was really cool. So the one thing I wanted to tell you, though, that they were so excited about is that they raised 76 fish to be able to bring down to Lewis Creek. And the next highest Trouts in the Classroom group in the state of Vermont had 16 to release. So they were 60 above. So you talk about competition. I mean, they were so excited. They're like, what percentage is that? Can we do that? Oh, they were so cute.
How many fry did they start with?
They were eggs, so I don't know.
Oh,
I think
okay.
hundreds. I know it was in the hundreds. I think it was
Yeah.
like around 200 or something
Okay.
like that. So yeah, there's definitely an attrition there
Wow,
that's
that's-
significant. But
that's fantastic.
but we got
How big
76.
is the tank that holds 76 fish? Like, what was the size?
Well, it's
They're-
about the
they're-
length of this,
and the fish are like this
and the
tall.
fish are only like that big.
Yeah.
they're little
Yeah.
fish. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're little fish.
Even when you
They
released them, they
brought-
were that big?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they bring them
Okay.
down in a cooler,
Yeah.
and they went through this whole transition of the water to aerate the water properly and get it to the right temperature, so they weren't shocked from indoor, water to outdoor water. It was quite a process, let me tell you.
great.
It was cool.
Did
It was
they do
really-
it down by the bridge at Lewis
We
Creek?
went past the bridge, and then we went up a road. Geographically, I'm kind of
Okay.
lost, but we went up a road, I would say probably a good mile, and then
Okay,
we
I'm
went
sure a lot.
into the went down a hill right
Okay.
into the creek. It was right. Oh, it was by the there's a falls there,
Okay.
like a waterfall kind of area.
Yeah,
There must be a
okay.
little dam there or something. So it was really great.
The kids got very attached to the
Oh,
fish.
they named them.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, they were they were very attached. It was a very emotional day. End of the year schedule, just an FYI for you. And then just acknowledging our retirees. So this year, Ellen Matthews, as you know, has been our technology coordinator and halftime librarian for 18 years. And Ellen will be leaving our system. She's retiring to be a grandparent, I think, is basically what she's excited to do. So she's got a couple of grandkids, so she's really excited to leave. David Southworth has been with us, believe it or not, for 36 years. He has not taught anywhere else. It's all been in Shelburne Community School. Obviously in different buildings, but at the Shelburne Community School. And David has been instrumental in a number of our after-school programs and our GOBs and our spelling bees, has been a coach, and as you can see, just recognized as an outstanding educator.
Very
He's not
popular
100%
teacher.
certain what he's going to do, but he probably will do a little subbing eventually because his wife will continue to work at our school, and I think she's going to prod him along to maybe come in and sub a little bit. So,
Nice.
Liz Bachelis is one of our literacy interventionists, and she's been with us since 2005, a number of different positions, but mostly as a literacy interventionist. And Liz is a sailor, so I think she's probably going to spend some time sailing. And finally, Richard Russell, who is one of our custodians, is retiring. He's been with us for about 10 years, and we'll miss him for all his good work. I did also put in Carol Chamberlain on the next page because I don't know if you recall, but Carol actually left us in February, but she did retire. So
Yep.
I figured I'd just put that acknowledgement there. She was one of our special ed specialists, if you recall, and she did a lot of reading recovery, and she was also a literacy person She had been with us for 24 years at the time that she left. So, and she also did French club, so you might remember that.
Yes.
She was the French club madame. So, yeah, those are our retirees. And our spring concerts have been unbelievable. There was one held last night for our 5th grade. It was our 5th grade regular concert band, and then our symphonic band. And the one before that was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, both of those bands. Tim Buckingham does an unbelievable job with those kiddos. Listening to 5th graders in the fall and then listening to them just before school ends in the spring, what an amazing transformation as musicians. And we also tonight, obviously, as I said, the reason Alan's not here is we had our 4th and 5th grade chorus concert. So he's there listening to that. And we just wanted to acknowledge we had a great dance with Charlotte, a middle school dance that was wonderful, and the event was actually put on by some students. They decided that it was part of their community service project as 8th graders, and they raised over $500 that they will be giving to the Shelburne Veterans Memorial, and 400 pounds of food for the Charlotte food shelf. Wow. So that was pretty cool. SBAC testing is going as planned, and we are finally at our last grade. Grade 3 started this week, so we should be done in a couple of weeks. As I said, the slideshow is there if you want. I wanted to acknowledge that Jason Lewis, one of our PE teachers, has been attending some professional development, as you can read there, leadership skills and practices for proficiency-based physical education in Vermont schools, and we look forward to him sharing his knowledge with the rest of the group as we move into standards-based learning. And finally, sorry about that, the page kind of went to the back, but our enrollment, as you can see, continues to be a healthy 756, and we have 82 kindergarten students registered for kindergarten next year, or registered for next year. So,
Wow.
that's that. Any questions?
And that's without the extra 10 that often come on the
That's
last
right.
week of school.
That's right, exactly.
Wow. So that will be a full kindergarten class.
It will be, with 5 teachers, yes.
Yeah.
Can you comment on how SBAC testing is going compared to the testing that went on a year ago? I think it was kneecap.
Kneecap, exactly. So I can tell you, I'm sorry, I'm just telling Alan what we're doing. Sorry about that. I can tell you that obviously it's somewhat anecdotal because we don't have test results yet, and we won't for
But in terms
probably a
of the
good month.
burden on the teachers and the students
Exactly.
and the time that it takes, and
So time-wise, at this point in time, there's a little bit more time, Bob, because it's new. I don't think it will actually be much more time when all is said and done, because it's supposed to have a more fluid look about it, so that it's not necessarily a scheduled 3 weeks when you do the testing in this way. That's supposed to become a little bit more fluid so that teachers can interject it in times that makes more sense in their curriculum. But obviously when you do something the first time, it doesn't, you have to do a little bit more lockstep to figure it all out. I think the teachers have actually, once they got through all that they had to put into the system, because there is a lot of front loading of the profiles of students and helping them to sort through what kind of accommodations and modifications they might need to the tests. So that's a little bit different, a little bit more taxing on teachers. Just the locations, because some kiddos took it in some of our labs with our desktops, other kiddos took it on our carts that we have on laptops. So kind of, just trying to finagle all that was a little bit. Ellen Matthews and Carrie Ahern were just instrumental in making this happen. I mean, Ellen just worked tirelessly to get this to happen. So just a great job. I would say I've asked probably 50% of my students and a few of middle school students, and the overwhelming response is that they like it a lot better. So kids actually like it a lot better.
Great.
They said that they wouldn't be as stressed out the next time that they took it. They felt a little bit stressed, but it was more just the newness of it. Once they started to figure out, they loved, of course, being on a screen. Although some of the kids said we needed more breaks because we need to not be on screens that long, and so just really good, rich dialogue about it. But I do believe that the results that we get will allow us to really do something with those results and make some curricular changes or instructional changes based on that information over time. So I didn't think it was, I thought it was, it's challenging.
Yeah.
I would, go ahead and take that 8th grade
Yeah.
math test. It's challenging.
I was surprised. I surveyed 50% of the students in my house.
How did they do? What did they think
And,
that 50%?
They didn't really think anything negative about it.
Yeah.
And shouldn't come home super exhausted. Never complained about how it was long or took away from anything, which I was, and after the schedule that you laid out and some of the comments people made, I never heard any negative comments, which was good.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, some people said that they hated their kiddo to be in front of a screen for that period of time, and you try to give them breaks, but particularly for that age group, when you're talking about 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, they're not as good about regulating themselves, whereas 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, I mean, when they're, they can get up and they can walk around, that's allowed, but 3rd, 4th, 5th graders don't tend to do that as much by themselves.
And that's what we heard in our household when they were
When
there.
you surveyed.
100% were surveyed in ours, and 50% on the younger side said it was hard, it was really long. And that was it. It's a 3rd grader, and it's tough.
And of
for
course,
them.
that's the first time he's taken
Yes.
a standardized test
Exactly.
anyway. So
Anyway.
he has nothing to compare it to. So that was
Right.
the other thing. I asked kiddos, compare it to the kneecap. What did you think filling out a bubble sheet and those, if you can think back on those questions. And the older they were, the more they said they liked SBAC better.
Right.
Yeah.
But of course, it's hard to make any kind of comparison if you've only done it once in
This
your
is
life.
the only test you've ever had. It's not so great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But thank you for asking that.
Yeah. So before we move on, I want to thank everyone retiring this year for their
Yes.
service to the SU
Yes.
and to Shelburne Community School, and we wish them happy trails.
Happy trails.
So CSSU debrief, we were all there. Discussion on special education, or presentation on special education. Some talk about policy and curriculum. Talked about subs and
Legislative.
pay for subs, and obviously the longest thing was the legislative reforms for what is it, 361? So, which is going to be, it's going to be interesting. It'd be nice if we all reorganized into one big board with fewer members.
But we're going to discuss that at the retreat also. That's
Yep.
going to be a discussion topic. Yeah.
That's right. That's it. Anything else of note?
I thought that presentation by
Yes.
about the legal thing was fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
That was really.
I could talk to that
It
guy
was-
all day. That was amazing.
Wow.
He's one of the
my
few
thought-
presenters that can make law interesting and entertaining.
Yes.
Yeah, he was very good.
My thought was that it would be worthwhile at the beginning of each school board year to have a quick reminder
I think
to
that's a
each
great
one of
idea.
the school board members, old and new,
Absolutely.
about the important issues that he brought up for
Mhm.
school board members there.
Okay.
Because it was kind of like an aha moment. Oh, yes, forgot about all of that.
Mm.
I had two things I'd love to know more about, and that is how the duty of care and the response of, what you can do and what you can't do, and how you handle a behavior problem on the bus.
Oh, that's
Because
major.
You've got so many kids
Yeah.
that, at risk. You've got one driver, and,
Yeah.
and if you how do you handle that? And then the other question I had, and he touched on it about the social media and the bullying and all that, but what is I mean, he said that just compliance isn't enough. I mean, are the schools expected to provide sort of instruction or what?
Right. Well, it's a good question, and I think there's many layers. His specific compliance isn't enough is for students who have IEPs or students who are on 504 who are somehow impacted by the bullying. So let's say a student with a disability who was the target of bullying is refusing to go see his special educator because he feels sensitive that he got teased, right, because he was bullied. The school is obligated to find some other way of providing that service, up to and including outside tutoring, or because we're responsible not just to do, we might have already satisfied the requirements of the policy by addressing the bullying issue, but if there's residual impact on the student with a disability, we have to make sure they can access their education and their services. And that can include lots of things. I mean, up to and including a different school placement. And that hasn't happened in our tenure here, but it's certainly not outside of the realm of possibility. I think the bus question is a really good question. I think the duty of care line is tricky. It probably has a lot to do with the extent to which the school could have reasonably predicted that it would happen. Mm-hmm. So if it's a student who struggles and always struggles, and you could reasonably assume he might struggle on the bus, there's some onus on the school to provide support. But if it's something that wasn't so predictable, I think it would fall on that, we're not obligated to observe. But that line is really gray, so it's a really good question. And I wrote down your question about being able to do this kind of review every year as part of our
Do you mean just like those initial slides relative to FERPA, or just the whole sort of 45 minutes?
Not the whole 45 minutes, but the school board's responsibilities, yes, for the FERPA.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Particularly.
That's good. Third quarter financial management report. You guys gave me the teaser last week, and then I finally got the information and I read it, and I was very happy.
Good.
It's nice to see fund balance being used for exactly what it's needed, which is great. Mm-hmm. Going right in to reduce the budget and offset unforeseen expenses, so it's great. Yep. If you guys read it, it came back with a $3,200 positive variance, which is good after application of the fund balance. And then the amount of fund balance we have in there is still higher than I had expected. So that's good. But I think that fund balance doesn't include this year's withdrawal.
Right.
So that's why it looked.
Yeah, you want to be careful when you look at that, right.
All right.
Thank you.
Legislative update. All I can say is we all heard that update, and we should all read Vermont Digger, the entire education section. I think the one thing that I found interesting was that in that listing of schools that have the 0 to 5.83% caps, I'm very curious what the big number in the second to last column is, because it says that our budget was $10,763,000. And we all know our budget was $12,995. So what is the $2 million that's not counted in there? And it makes me want to go back to the budget flyer and look at those big pieces, or then look at the 3-year DOE form and figure out which one, because they break out principal and interest, they break out certain other costs. So that 10 million number is obviously not
sometimes they take
our budget. So
maybe that's a question to Bob Mason.
I wrote it down because I'm not having it in front of me. I can't. Sometimes it has to do with transportation, or it might have to do with an assessed cost from the SU that's reported elsewhere. But I honestly don't know, so I think we should ask what that clarification is. Could have to do with revenue, that. So we'll ask Bob that.
But
that's a good question.
And that's reports to the board.
Policy? You have to do policy.
What did I say? 6.4. We were going to discuss the playground.
Yes.
Do you have any
Did
facilities
you want 5.4?
report?
I was just. I'm sorry.
No,
this
you're
isn't
fine.
my meeting. I'm sorry.
It's more yours than mine.
So for facilities, what? I thought I saw that in here. Oh, because I'm looking at the CSSU agenda.
Yes.
There we go. Now I'm on the right page. It's okay. So the note I got back from David Hillman is that they had a great meeting with that included Jim Farrington and the architect of Farrington Construction. And they went through and they looked at a bunch of different options, and I believe that they're now going through and in the process of costing. They canceled this week's facilities meeting because they hadn't been able to get enough information to have an effective meeting. So hopefully David can get some information back from them. And then we can discuss some more of this during the June 1st retreat. And then also from a facility standpoint, I did send out the results to the survey so far. I sent them to you all by email. I tried to print them out and be efficient, two-sided, and they came out really tiny. So I won't even try to, like super tiny.
Yeah, I do that.
Not even, yeah. So, the answers are, I could take all this information from my own SurveyMonkey account and give you guys just what I want to give you, but I didn't do that.
That's what surveys can be about.
So I sent you guys the responses to all the questions. I think the initial things are, we got 252 responses, and 120 were yes voters, 106 were no voters, and 26 were I did not vote. And as you step through, I think the way we look at the no voters and their answers, and it's sort of trying to find that sweet spot of, if you initially look at the results, they'll all pay for. There's a lot of support for roof and windows, and we all knew that. And there is some support for a little bit of work above that. So it's just finding that sweet spot in between, and I think that's the work that David and the architect and the construction managers are going through to try and come up with a bunch of different options for different costs, and then we'll discuss
On these
those.
results,
Yep.
how can I tell which were the answers by the no voters?
So if you go through, the first set of questions were
Because they repeat, I got
right.
that.
So the first 11 questions are no, and then
Oh, those are no.
those are no, and then there's a very subtle gray bar that goes across the page.
Between 11 and 12?
Oh,
Page
here's
9.
an easier one. Each section ends with the early voting question. So it's questions 1 to 15 are no voters. Questions 16 and on are yes voters.
Okay.
And then and each section, the first question, it's obvious. Why I voted no. Why'd you vote no? And then the last one is why didn't you vote? So that's the start of the third section. So
Say that again. What's the start of the third?
third section is why didn't you vote? The question
okay,
is
got
why
it,
didn't you
got
vote?
it, got
But
it, got
each section ends with the did you utilize early voting, which was
Right. Yes.
which I threw that question in just for my own interest late, and it was valuable because there was that debate about information getting out for early voters.
Right.
And overall, it looks like 75% of the people who replied to the survey didn't vote early. There's not a very large number of people voting early.
Right.
This being said, 252 responses.
It's only what,
If we're-
14 or 15% of the total vote?
Yeah, a normalized distribution of a vote involving 2,000 people would be 1,000.
Oh, wow.
So it's not a normalized distribution, but it's some information. It's more information than we'd have if we didn't ask.
Exactly.
So,
And was it only, that, of the 250, only 100 provided detailed answers, or was that just the segment that, I mean?
so there were 252
Yeah,
that provided answers,
and at the.
and 120 were yes. 120 voted yes,
Okay,
106 voted no, and 26 didn't vote. That's
Okay.
what I
Right.
said.
Right.
And I was trying to understand, when you go into ask the questions about how did you get your information and all that, up at the top, under the heading was something like 100 out of 200,
So the thing is when you ask the way that statement is there,
Yeah.
that's because I organized it in 3 columns. So the way you answer the first question, did you vote yes, did you vote no, or didn't you vote, then you funneled into those 3 things. So that's really, it's kind of a useless piece of info.
Okay.
It's misleading
Okay.
because
So actually,
say you
everybody
have 3,
provided that
yeah,
information.
you know, the people who voted yes aren't going to answer the questions that apply to people who voted no.
I see.
That's why
Okay.
that's the good question.
And there were sections that said other, please specify. Did you get any written answers in there?
I did. I didn't print
they
them out
worth-
for this. You can look at them. They're
Were they
not very useful.
valuable? That's what I was going to ask.
I
Okay.
mean-
Not printable?
Well, they only insulted me a little bit. And, but in reality, they weren't any different than that information there.
No new
Some of the,
insights.
one of the, I'd say, so what's the primary reason you didn't vote? So there's 26 people who provided comments. I would say the highest frequency of the other votes were, 6 to 8 people who wrote all of the above. So, like they wrote, I didn't vote because of scope, alternatives weren't investigated, the need for the work hadn't been, so. And I didn't realize how much had been truncated from these things, so.
Yeah.
I'll try and get you better formatted answers, but I think you can. Oh, actually, on the lower part, it has everything.
Yeah,
broken out,
that's
so.
the full answer.
So-
Question.
Well, thank you. I think it's great to have a poll or a survey like that, and,
Yeah.
just.
It was actually, we had, John Harris was
Mhm.
the instigator, and he got a lot of the background information, and then we had help from, a couple
Looks like they
community
were real
members.
pros. They had a lot
Yeah.
of good experience with data management.
The only way I can ask this question is to ask the child's name, and I don't want to do that. But the 2 parents that helped us were very helpful, who were.
One of them, Liz? Something?
Yes, Liz Kleinberg, and who's worked on political campaigns, so that was really valuable. And then Megan Downey
Oh, yeah, Megan
was
Downey, that's right.
was great from a sort of just like again, I think from a political background, but also just her background was great in formulating questions, and John was like, I'm going on vacation, we can't do this, maybe we should wait another few weeks. I'm like, no, so I stayed up one night and wrote all the questions, and SurveyMonkey is actually really fascinating.
Yeah.
It's really, if
You
you've
know,
ever done
The
it.
guy just died. that was
I
in it.
know.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I
Just
know.
a shame.
Oh, that's too
He's
bad.
Cheryl Sandberg's husband.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yes.
right. I did hear that.
Yeah, so that was sad. But, yeah, it was great, and it was only $26.
Not bad.
Not bad.
That's pretty good.
So that's where we stand with. I think we'll have more information at the retreat, and we can continue our discussion. I think.
Good.
Again, the hope is discussion in June, further discussion and evaluation of options in the end of June at the business meeting, possibly some forums and public discussion over the summer, and then an action in September to go on the ballot in November.
Ah,
So
interesting. Okay.
that's the
Going for November.
That's the plan.
Good.
So we can move to discussion matters, 6.1 policy. Does anyone have any issues with any of the policies that we have coming up?
Other than it was an inordinate amount of material to read.
It always is.
Well, but they had all the state statutes this time with it,
Yeah.
which I don't remember with the other ones. So
Really?
it was like about 90 pages of material to
Yeah.
read or so. Yeah.
Okay. 6.2 retreat planning. So I thought we had a couple topics that we had talked about at the planning meeting. So I know we were, did you record those? Or?
So the ones that I have were facilities.
Yeah.
and then the normal action plan, kind of state of the school AYP plan.
Okay.
Those were the only ones that I had from our notes.
Okay. Do you guys have anything else you'd like to add to that, or?
I think it'll come up anyway with the CSSU, but I think the redistricting, I think.
Governance.
I mean, and how will it affect the Shelburne community? I think we need to think about that, and the community school.
Yeah.
And also, what's the process? I mean, does everybody vote, or is it, what happens if one district doesn't go for it?
I think that question was answered at one point, and it was districts vote to go in, and unlike previously, one district cannot spoil the vote for the rest of the CSSU. If that district does not choose to be part of what would be a red or a supervisory district or whatever it is, they're on their own. Mm-hmm. And then they can be, and then the resulting district is formed of the rest of the schools, and then the Agency of Education decides where that school goes.
The outlier.
Because it's obviously not going to be 900 kids, so it can't survive on its own, and then it can then be assigned to one of the neighboring districts.
Chittenden East, where Huntington is the outlier, they voted not to join their district, and obviously this is pre the new legislation, so it's a little bit different, but they are essentially on their own. They're still part of the MMU because their kids still go to MMU, but they are their own district, and then everything else in Chittenden East is, I can't remember what their new name is, but so similar, the difference between the new law is now the AOE can come in and tell Huntington where they're going to go, because whereas and I don't know what will happen to them because they did this voluntarily before the law passed, so I don't know if that will change things. But that's what would happen, is you'd have an outlier.
Now, if you vote to be an outlier, then you wouldn't qualify for the tax incentives.
Correct.
You wouldn't get the 10-cent reduction.
Correct.
Or the 8-cent reduction.
And you would lose control over the ultimate, you would be at the mercy of the Board of Ed, State Board, around where you go.
I mean, imagine if one of the schools in RSU decided not to join, what's the next reasonable geographic option?
Right.
You have Mount Abe, you have Virgins, South Burlington, or MMU. I mean, so.
But you won't know until after you've voted. I mean, in other words, you go into the voting booth blind as to what the other districts are going to do.
Yeah, and
you don't know if you're going to be an outlier or everybody's going to vote it down.
Yeah, I think it's all. I think that it's a lot of the devil you know versus the devil you don't. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it's going to come down to, and it's going to be like, I want to retain individual control, but do I want to roll the dice and not have control of where I'm going to be, and be in a group of friends, and it's hard to hang out on Tuesdays in CVU with Williston, Heinsberg, Charlotte, and Shelburne, but maybe it's not so bad.
But to your point, how do we vote? Is it the school boards? Is it a public vote?
It's a public vote.
It's a public vote.
Yeah. So
March of next year.
If you want the initial incentive, if you want that.
Unless you make a case that remaining as this SU is reasonable. Mm-hmm. But I mean, somebody says, hey, you want 10 cents? You're like, yeah, let's go.
But
come on. But you're right, it's a tight timeline.
So basically, we'd get 10 cents for just changing the governance. I mean, the only thing that would change is the governance, because we're already the model for any school district or supervisory union.
I think, I think that's what the committee will talk about. I think Elaine describes it well, where she says right now we function in a very consolidated fashion because everyone desires to function that way. So it's a loosely held confederation, so to speak. But to your point, for a district that does that pretty well already, to get some incentive for codifying what we do pretty well.
That's great. It's a no-win. Yeah, you can't lose. It's a no-lose situation.
However, I think trying to decide governance and understand governance is going to be a major issue, to figure out how that is all going to happen for all of the 5 schools with one board.
And I think I think what we're gonna have to do before the retreat is just encourage each of us to read
Really
the law.
understand
I don't know
fully.
if we need to go so far as to divide up sections of the law and read it, but, individually and then report, but I don't know, maybe we could just read it. Because there are little things that you come across, like 10 million. Why is our budget only 10 million? That doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
So, trying to figure that out.
I think it's worthwhile for each one of us to read it, because knowing how people read things, everybody picks up something different
Yeah.
from it and could bring that enrichment to the final discussion ultimately. And if we have to go back and reread it or whatever, then that's good too, after
And
the
if we
discussion.
need further, investigation, clearly
Yes.
Matt Wormser will take care of it.
Because he's not here.
He's not here. He will.
Well, Tim too. I think
Yeah.
the two of them.
There you
Well,
go. It's always good.
we haven't quite gotten our chance with the rookie yet, so. Board's Corner. Don't have any big ideas right now.
No.
Uh,
Maybe we do some kind of end of the year report after the retreat or whatever. I don't know. Think about that if we need to.
Maybe.
Well, it'd certainly be good to summarize, issues like this governance.
The
'cause they've all
legislation.
been reading about the legislation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in the news a lot.
And I thought CSSU, I think there's a communications committee. Kim Schmidt
Right.
and Susan Grasso they were both.
And it's CBU, right.
Oh, that
It
was,
was.
well,
So after the retreat last year, where it was brought up, this idea that should there be communication that's consistent instead of one board,
Exactly.
going in this direction, but everyone's trying to share the same information. And at that point, there wasn't a desire on the collective board to dedicate a CSSU committee, but sort of an acknowledgement that CBU really wanted to do that, and whether you call it a pilot or whatever you call it, that might be what the CSSU board comes back around to at the retreat, is to say,
it'd be good to have a unified.
Yes.
right, do we pick back up the
On
conversation?
message, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I understand that, but I also think that, our issues in
Yeah.
Shelburne are going to speak to Shelburne residents.
Right.
And I'm trying not to pick on one particular school district, but there's going to be different opinions on it in different school districts. So,
And if you look at that survey, a lot of people answered that they got their information from the Shelburne News.
and
So people read what's in the news.
yeah, that's right.
That's what we wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Better than Front Porch Forum.
Absolutely.
I was going to add a discussion matter 6.5 on whether or not we should allow people to ride their bicycles to school anymore. But if you've been following Front Porch Forum, you think that's funny. But
Oh, no, I understand. Yes. Right. Well,
Clearly you
certainly
haven't.
not 3 abreast on Dorset Street.
that's right.
Oh.
Because, no, on Bostwick Road, because there's that hospital on Bostwick Road that everyone needs to get to so quickly, right? Sarcasm fun.
Oh, okay.
So 6.4 was, there's lots more to this. If you have some time, I'll tell you this
Okay.
story as a concerned resident of
bicyclist.
Shelburne and a cyclist. 6.4 is the playground.
Yeah.
So under the chapter of Welcome to the Federal Government, just another day. So when we received the grant, we were told that we would not receive the money an official notification to spend the money until until January 1st. So we had to get our plans around July 1st, the other month that starts with a J.
That's right.
I was
Yeah.
going to say January.
So
How
July
can we build
1st.
it in the summertime?
So you know, our plans were all around, okay, so if we get the authorization to start on July 1st, that's close enough, that's fine. And then we received a note that due to staffing reassignments, that the July 1st date wasn't guaranteed, and I'm not even sure they said it would be extended to another date, but
They
didn't-
just said that 60 days that person was going to be like on a leave of absence or something.
Right. So basically, any expenses that we make before we get the official notification of the grant wouldn't be reimbursable. So, however, there is an opportunity to apply for a waiver so that you know you have the grant, you haven't received the official contract due to, you know, a backlog of paperwork, but you could get a waiver in order to start on the date that the waiver becomes active. So Lisa Williams and I are speaking with Jessica at the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources, I believe.
Yes.
Yep.
Is Jessica Ricketson?
Jessica Savage.
Jessica
Savage, yes.
to try
Okay.
and
I know her.
to
what
okay.
you said.
So we're just
I do.
trying to. We want to get a waiver
Mhm.
because we need to have it done. And my conversation with her was we need to have this done by August 26th.
6th.
Right,
Mhm.
August 26th. So we have a bunch of equipment coming in. We have a hole that needs to be dug.
Mm.
We have concrete that needs to be poured. So I haven't heard back after my initial note, so we'll follow up and get that going. So that's the status. Hopefully, everything will come through and we'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is like, you can't dig the hole until
Right.
you have the money.
Right.
We don't
And the
want to
first
lose
thing you
any
have to
of that
do
money.
is dig the
Dig the
hole. So,
Yep, it's definitely a catch.
So they won't dig the hole and bill us later?
not gonna make that gamble, no.
We can't start the project. is
Yeah,
what
you
they're
can't
basically
start
saying.
it.
You can't
Because they won't
start it.
reimburse you if you've spent the money. It's to prevent people from going for
Because you could just
compensation
walk
for
that
some
back,
funds and
right? You could just walk that back as far as you
Right,
wanted,
right.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
so, it's unfortunate, but I think it's a speed bump on the way, and hopefully there's a process
That's
we
what I
can work
think.
around it.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, all right. So move to action matters, 7.1, can I get a motion to approve the 2015-16 student and professional development calendar?
So
So-
move.
Second?
Okay.
Thank you.
Any discussion?
No.
Any complaints about snow days for potential
Oh,
for next year?
no, gosh.
Okay,
No.
so all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. We spoke about the support staff. Oh, so can I get a motion to ratify the support staff contract?
So moved.
Second.
Second, any discussion?
Nope.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so for the personnel, I have no problem with doing this like we did at CSSU and just
Right.
approving them all and don't have any issues.
Mm-hmm.
So can I get a motion to approve personnel actions for technology integrationist and the FTE increase for an art teacher?
So moved.
Second?
Second. Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
The technology integrationist, is that under the CSSU or is that building specific?
It's local.
Local,
Yep.
okay.
Good question.
Yeah. If it was CSSU, we wouldn't even get to vote on it.
That's true. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
But as an example, CSSU always notifies us when they do hire someone. That works in our building.
It's a good courtesy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like the special educator you just hired.
Yeah.
CSS you just hired on your behalf,
Very
actually.
good.
I should say.
And picked up the phone and called me and told me all about it that day, and I was very appreciative. So all those in favor of these personnel actions?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. And 7.4 is not on there, so move to consent agenda. I get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No, because it's a consent agenda. All those in favor?
That was a trick.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. We have our retreat, which is 2 weeks from Monday, or 2 weeks from yesterday. So it's on Monday, June 1st. And the Sunset Ballroom, that's like just past Allen Road, right? Is that where we're going?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
God, that's like another 10 minutes in my life on Monday.
Oh, look at that.
That's amazing.
Bonus.
And then we have our business meeting on June 23rd. Do we have an executive session? I don't think we do.
I don't think so.
And with that, we shall adjourn from our regular meetings for the 15-16 calendar year. Go forth and enjoy your summers.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Well, we are attending the graduation, correct? On
Yes.
June 11th.
Graduation
Is
June
that right?
11th,
Daughter's
4:30,
Right.
where I will not try to read my graduation speech from an iPhone.
Nice.
It seemed like such a good idea for the 21st
Right.
century.
Right. Well, it was.
So motion to adjourn.
That's right, I kind of
So
forgot about
moved.
that.
We're out of session.